Mohnish Pabrai, the famed value investor, often says that to truly succeed, you don't need to be a genius in everything. You just need to go an inch wide and a mile deep. It's a deceptively simple phrase, but it captures the essence of a winning strategy, and it perfectly describes the life and approach of John Arrillaga, a man who quietly amassed a fortune by mastering a small corner of the world. Let me tell you a story that proves you don't need to know everything to build a fortune. You just need to go an inch wide and a mile deep. John Arrillaga was a man who turned farmland into gold. Not because he knew everything about real estate everywhere, but because he knew everything about real estate in one place, and that place was Silicon Valley. He wasn't born with wealth, far from it. John grew up during the Great Depression in Inglewood, California. His father was a Basque immigrant who worked in manual labor, and money was tight. But young John was ambitious. He excelled in athletics and earned a basketball scholarship to Stanford University in the 1950s. That scholarship wasn't just a ticket to a good education. It was the beginning of a lifelong relationship with a specific place, a relationship that would ultimately define his career, his fortune, and his legacy. After graduating, John didn't chase dreams across the country. He stayed close to Stanford, drawn to the open spaces and untapped potential of the region. While others saw farmland and nothing more, John saw something else. He saw a future. He believed those fields would one day become the heartbeat of innovation, and he made a simple but powerful decision. I'm going to be the one to make it happen. That's exactly what he did. While other investors were diversifying across multiple cities, chasing deals from coast to coast, John focused. He picked his lane, the area around Stanford, the peninsula, and Silicon Valley. Just a few zip codes, but he resolved to learn every inch of it. John Arrillaga didn't become famous by spreading himself thin. He became legendary by going deep. He didn't just know the general location of properties. He knew every property, every street, every building. He knew who owned what the rent was, when it was last sold, and for how much. He could tell you the cost to build an office complex, a warehouse, or a parking structure, down to the last nail. He didn't rely on spreadsheets or teams of analysts. His knowledge was personal, lived, and absorbed from decades of walking the same ground. He studied traffic patterns, zoning regulations, economic shifts, and tenant needs. He knew what companies were coming, what they needed, and how to build it for them. He didn't just buy land, he developed it. He turned farmland into modern office parks that became home to the world's most valuable companies. He built exactly what the market needed, exactly when it needed it. And because he knew the area better than anyone else, he could act faster, smarter, and more efficiently than the competition. That level of mastery made him a billionaire. John didn't need to understand what was happening in New York or Texas or Florida. He didn't chase national trends or the latest real estate buzzwords. He just knew his area better than anyone else. That was his edge. That was his moat. It's the exact strategy Mohnish Pabrai emphasizes: an inch wide and a mile deep. Focus narrowly, master completely. That's what John did, and the results speak for themselves. He partnered with Richard Peary to form Arrillaga, and together they developed much of the commercial infrastructure that supported Silicon Valley's tech boom. Companies like Apple, Intel, and Google operated out of buildings he developed. While those companies built fortunes with code and chips, John built his with concrete, steel, and square footage. And he did it quietly, efficiently, with relentless focus. There are stories that John could recall the square footage, rent price, and construction cost of every building he owned, without checking a single document. He had all the numbers in his head. Because he didn't just own those buildings, he understood them. He treated each property like a living organism. He knew its history, its strengths, its weaknesses. He wasn't a speculator. He was a craftsman, a builder, a steward of value. But perhaps most impressively, he didn't stop at making money. John Arrillaga became one of the most generous philanthropists in Stanford's history. He donated hundreds of millions of dollars to the university, supporting academic programs, athletic facilities, scholarships, and more. His name is etched across campus buildings, but many of his donations were made anonymously until Stanford insisted on recognizing him. John believed in giving back to the place that gave him his start. And he did it with the same discipline and humility that built his empire. His story is more than inspiring. It's instructional for investors, for entrepreneurs, for anyone seeking success. You don't need to know everything. You don't need to be everywhere. You don't need to chase every trend. You need focus. You need depth. You need to find your niche, your circle of competence, and go all in. Too many people believe success comes from being a generalist, from knowing a little bit about everything. But John Arrillaga proved that you can become wildly successful by knowing a lot about one thing. Think about this in investing terms. Warren Buffett, perhaps the greatest investor of all time, famously says, "I stay within my circle of competence." He waits patiently for the fat pitch. He doesn't swing at everything. That's exactly what John did in real estate. He found his circle, and he mastered it. From a scholarship kid with nothing to a billionaire developer. From farmland to the nerve center of the global tech economy. From obscurity to legend. He didn't move fast and break things. He moved steadily and built things, brick by brick, block by block, in a place he knew better than anyone. And in doing so, he left a legacy of wealth, wisdom, and generosity. So if you're wondering how to build something meaningful, or how to invest successfully, remember John Arrillaga. You don't have to know everything. You just have to know something deeply. Find your one zip code, your one niche, your one edge, and master it. That's all it takes. An inch wide, a mile deep, just like John Arrillaga.